Good morning. Good morning. It's been a heck of an energetic week, and coming to you this morning with a little bit of a froggy voice, some aches and pains that I'm sure you're aware of because there's a lot going on. And it's still in the process. The energies have been complex. We have solar flares sort of easing off, but the Schumann spiking, and we've got some rewiring going on in our nervous system. So it's kind of intense, right? Um, so, in the midst of all of this, what I would say is that the question that keeps returning is how do we trust ourselves? How do we trust our own energy system? How do we trust our light? So it's not a concept, it's a signature that knows how to navigate in this changing world. And I want to talk about that signature today and take us through it and realize that we have some secret tools we want to talk about, right? So let's just take a deep breath together right now. Place your hand over your heart and feel that quiet space inside your inner sun, right? Where your own light comes from. So let this be your compass, your technology, and your direct line to the divine. Okay. So, first, let's start with the solar and planetary context that's going on. Okay. So the sun pretty much stayed at a very moderate C1 to C5 level all week. It had a small, low M class. However, that isn't indicative of what's going on because as of 8 o'clock this morning, we were at a C9 and what I would call a long duration flare. So it was holding, or that's what Pam Youngins calls it, and I would say that to you. So this long duration flare, sort of came up in bursts and just has been holding us. And some of us who feel solar flares can feel that and realize that that's what's going on. So let's just take that and hold that over there and talk about the Schumann. So on Thursday, the Schumann did this huge waterfall of white light. It kind of like a blowout, like filled the whole screen, like just brought in what they call a supernova of Schumann bursts. And then promptly at 2 p.m. on Friday, the 10th, the Schumann stopped functioning, which kind of tells me that the technology didn't quite know what to do with that burst and it's offline. So we don't know if it's down. We don't know if it's tracking. We don't know if it just isn't publishing. We don't know what's going on. But I was watching Erin on Consciously Erin, who does a Schumann report every morning, and she says, wow, like when we get those bursts and what she's feeling right now is that we're rewiring the synapses in our brain, right? We're growing neurons. Even as this solar energy slows down, the energy is still up and moving through us. And she talks about timeline jumps. She talks about a whole lot of things that happened between Thursday with that huge wave over the Schumann and now this blackout. And I thought that was kind of interesting. What else? Uh, what happens when we get that big blowout, when we have all of our neurons awake? What happens is that our body fills with light. And when our body feels like with light, all of the cells that are unhealthy or tired or asleep or not functioning well start to function on a different level, and it creates fatigue. It creates aches and pains in parts of our body that we're not sure of, dizziness, naps, um, and it's resets and it's downloads into our bodies, right? And then we have all of these strange waves of emotions that are coming up. So what we want to continue to look at is that this is not a malfunction. Our body isn't dying. We aren't sort of crumpling up and pulling back. What's happening is we're recalibrating. And when we recalibrate, the light is refining the matter of our body. The frequency is rewiring our nervous system. That makes sense, right? It's like, wow. So, nervous system needs some rest, needs some peace, needs some hydration. And we'll talk about that in the tips, right? So the second piece is that let's talk about what I mean by this light, because Lee Harris in his October update, his first tip was that, are you cultivating your personal connection to light? And, in some ways that can sound a little woo, like, what's your relationship with your light? Or what's your relationship with your energy? Because it opens up everything. When we speak about the light, it's about the light, your personal resonance, how the source moves through you, how your soul has a signature, right? So you ask yourself, what does the light feel like in my body? Does it buzz? Is it expanding? Is it calm right now? How do I know when I'm aligned with it or when I'm drifting from it? So your light isn't something that you earn. It's something that you already have. So we don't have to do all these acts in order to become quote unquote, enlightened. We just have to go find out what we have inside that's been deeply buried and that's been dimmed because of a lot of social, cultural, strategic designs, right? Makes sense. So, of all the people who came across my feed, I'm watching this guy and I'm like, oh, who is that guy? I look him up. It's Glenn Beck, who's a conservative political commentator. And he's sort of doing this TikTok like, I got to share with you something that I've really never talked about. And he said, we're not in a political battle. We are in a spiritual battle. And it's time to see the world through spiritual eyes. And that's what caught my attention, is to see the world through spiritual eyes, or to see the world through the eyes of um, a light frequency within your body, to see to use your claircognizance, to use your clairvoyance, to use all of your clairs, right? To read the unseen layers behind the event. So you're not getting caught up in, political parties or ICE raids or national, international events. What you're doing is you're looking at the layers underneath and sensing the vibration of the words and the intention and the motivation before you make an opinion. It makes sense. And so this is discernment. It's not judgment. It's saying that there's an activation in my clairs. And for now, I'm using my claircodance, which is, man, I'm reading these codes, these numbers, these words, these synchronicities. Who comes across my screen? Glenn Beck isn't someone who's ever come across my screen and not someone I would have followed yet. He said the one thing that sort of brought this video today into a center point, which is, how do we start to see the world through our spiritual eyes, through our light, right? So when this new human starts to navigate, when we, as an upgraded, efficient human starts to navigate, it's not from control, it's from coherence. So let's talk about that control, because there's this old architecture of control that for thousands of years we've been trained to obey power, to follow systems, hierarchies, and emotional conditionings. We know this, whether it comes from our family systems, our education system, our religious systems, our communities. This is an old control grid and it's collapsing. So when we start to recognize our nervous system, when we notice our triggers, and when we refuse to hand our attention of fear over, the system loses its grip. And so I didn't pull out a lot of cards for you, but I wanted to start with this woke me up about 2 in the morning. It was like, show them the Princess of Wands. So if you look at her really closely, she's naked. Her hair, her antenna is taking her up towards this top of this flame, and she's got either a expired tiger or a unconscious or a totally defeated tiger, which is her fear, by the tail. There's absolutely no fear in her body. So when I look at this card, the card is the absence of fear. And so it shows a very empowered princess who's not taking anything personal and has conquered her fear. When I go to Osho, it's a completely different version of that, which is someone who's actually surrounded in light, chest open. There's an complete absence of fear and playfulness. And it makes sense to me that these two are they're very different yet very similar. And then when I go to the light seers, here is a woman dancing with all of the light. She's not afraid of it. There's no fear in her body and she's actually playing. So it's like this combination of the three. So when we look at this princess of fire, when we look at the way that fear, the absence of fear, what we want to do is we want to look at what happens when there's when what happens when there's controls, what happens when there's an old matrix that is set on building fear into our system on a consistent basis, and then what happens when we become present to that and we dissolve the control, right? Our awareness rewrites that programming. We step out of that matrix of fear. And this is what it's like to separate from the old system, which Lee Harris said was like number 5 on his tips, to return your authority to your own light. So when we talk about returning our authority, I'm going to bring up play as sacred technology. So let's talk about play, because I know that that word carries resistance. It can feel frivolous, it can feel unimportant, it can feel childish. Like, I've had so many corporate eye rolls, and even trusted friends and colleagues go like, play, really? One of my favorite stories is working with a woman up on Bainbridge, and it was like, if I said play, it would just like her entire body would tense up and she'd say, stop using that word. That word doesn't work for me. And I thought, that's super interesting, that it's almost like there's a curse or there's a web around it. That when we say play, it's okay for children to play, but when we're adults, we are not allowed to play. And when I look at these two, it's like that's the essence of holding our light, right? So then when control-based systems taught us that play was irresponsible, that joy was dangerous, and that curiosity distracted us from productivity, we got stuck. But here's the truth: play isn't an escape at all, it's an engagement. It's how we engage with the world, it's how play learns to be conscious. And it's the soul's way of staying subtle, right? Attentive, adaptive, alive. So when you're playful, you're present. You have to be. You're absolutely in the moment, right? So when you're curious, the reptilian mind can't predict you. When you laugh, the frequency of fear loses its architecture. So when we become lighthearted, which is when our heart is filled with light, we become very difficult to control. So Rumi calls this flirting with the divine, right? The art of being enchanted, responsive, unguarded, open to surprise. Play is a sacred dialogue. It's a dance between the human and the infinite. It's when they bond and when they connect. So when you paint or sing or move or tinker, or in my case, dance and cook or garden or laugh with someone else over coffee, right? What happens is that I'm conversing with the cosmos. You're conversing with the cosmos. You're saying, I trust life enough to meet it as a partner, not a threat. This is huge. This is sacred technology, because the secret controllers can't access this and they never will understand. Play is unhackable. It cannot be mimicked. It cannot be, because it's encoded with love and freedom and creative intelligence. So when you engage playfully with life, right, you're not ignoring the world's pain. You're alchemizing it. You're saying that's out there, but I'm going to bring it in and I'm going to blend it. And I brought the lust card in, which is what Thoth it calls is 8. It's how we manifest, right? And in this one, it's the 11, which is justice, because Thoth has justice and courage intertwined. But this is this is the purity of balance and courage combined. She's, again, just like the princess over here, naked, laying on the back of a tamed lion, holding her light out there. And so, what I'm looking at is when you're not ignoring the world's pain, you're alchemizing it, you're reintroducing fluidity into the frozen. You're remembering that divine intervention feels like. I'm partnering with the divine. This is what it feels like. So, as Alexander Quinn reminded us, he did a video twice this week and he's been talking. There was this huge surge of energy in early October on the 7th and 8th that we're still integrating. Our mitochondria, our cellular powerhouses are adjusting to higher frequencies of light, right? Our nervous system is rewiring for a multidimensional perspective. And that multidimensional perspective is that I can feel beaten down or I can ride it. I can play with it. I can um, partner with it. The divine isn't demanding effort, it's asking for partnership and cooperation. So I have 6 tips for you, and before I go into those tips today, what I wanna do is just remind you that we talk about these things. A lot of this play concept came off of the Tuesday discussion when we were creating a multidimensional mapping of what we're experiencing, and then we sort of threw in, well, what are the things that can't be hacked? What are the ways that we can show up that is very different from the approaches that we're using that are not working? So if you wanna come and join the Patreon, the link is down below. For paid membership, you can come in and join the discussion. So explore that, and we would love to have you there. So, tips. First one, observe before you react. Feel the energy from your story. Wow, what's going on here? How come I'm in reaction? What's my experience with that? Because our observation restores sovereignty. So, what we want to do is we want to observe before we react. Which just means we slow it down, we calm our nervous system. We go, wow, look at the way that one just hit me. And then we manage it. It's interesting. Number 2, I'm going to cough. All the rest of this is horrible. Excuse me. Number 2, name divine intervention. So when the flow returns, when harmony appears, you can go, wow, this is what it's like to be in partnership with light. This is what it's like to be in partnership with the divine. Recognize that that recognition that you have locks the code in, and it allows your field to flow with that essence. If we don't ever know what it's like to be in partnership or in the flow with the divine, how will we know how to get back there? Or how do we know when that balance is being created? It's like when you get to that center of that balance and you're, as Rumi said, flirting with the divine, flirting with the light, when you're in your power, you know it. So, what we want to do is we want to create that as often as possible. Number 3, reclaim play as your sacred practice. Like, wow, let it sort of flow within you. Let your curiosity rise, create, expand, laugh, build. This is your technology. I have light in my body. What am I going to do with it? Well, what if I do this? Oh, well, that happens. And then you get into action response. And that's the flirting process, which is I'm going to try this and let's see what happens. And whether it's moving time, whether it's settling in and allowing time to talk with you, to play with you, these are all the powers of how we use light. So play with it. Play, right? Number 4, hydrate, ground, breathe. We know this. This is like we've known this for 2 years. The more that we put water in that can help us conduct light, the earth, it steadies us, right? And our breath restores coherence. So we want to be able to get into peaceful places where we can breathe. Am I breathing? Is my body relaxed? Am I hydrated? Am I grounded? These are core questions that we need to use in order to hold our sovereignty at this time. Number 5, see with spiritual eyes. I love it. Um, Tune in to tone, to intention, to vibration, because everything isn't what it seems. And I keep reminding the people that I coach and the colleagues I talk to that we are really 95 to 98% hidden from the world. In other words, Probably didn't say that the right way or the best way. Um, we only see 2 to 5, maybe at the most 10% of what actually is happening in this earth, on this earth, in this world. And so what we wanna do is we wanna see with our eyes, our spiritual eyes, our eyes with light. We wanna feel, we wanna sense, we wanna use the coding, we wanna recognize, because discernment is love in action. It's like I'm paying really close attention so that I can respond to it. We want that in our partners. We want that in our relationships. Let's do that with ourselves, right? Number 6, lead with compassion. Wow, compassion stabilizes your frequency. It does. It just is the easiest thing. You just go, oh, takes you out of reaction, out of judgment, and it brings you right into balance. And it's this gentle armor that keeps us awake. So you're here right now, standing where there's things ending and there's things beginning. The old systems are tightening as they're dissolving, and the new codes are sort of humming to the surface, and we're getting slammed one after the other with flares and plasma energy streams and waves coming over in the Schumann. So you're not powerless in this. You play, your presence, your light, they are the counter frequency to control. Because when we play, we remember the game is never about winning, it's about enjoyment, it's about awakening. So take a breath, feel your light. You are the technology. You. That's our sacred technology. So I'm going to put a journal prompt down below. First line in the comments. I'd love to hear your experience with this video, what's coming up for you, what your relationship is with play. And what I'm noticing is each of you are sort of commenting on each other's comments, and I love that. So by all means, get down there in the comments and let me know what you think, and come back and join us for Patreon. See you later. Bye.